Hello and welcome back to Top Deck, the series where we take a look at some of the leading TCG deck lists. On today we have Camron, who made top 8, returning at the Exeter Regional, and it's another Altergeist list that made it into Top Cut from this event. However, this is a lot more like the sort of older style of Altergeist that we're used to seeing, one that's been very popular in America and online recently, and sticking with the traditional lineup of Altergeist cards and just a ton of useful traps. So let's run through the list first of all. So triple impermanence, triple ash, and double crow for hand traps. These have been actually really popular, we've seen over the last sort of couple of weeks. With Orcus being such a prevalent deck still, and DD Crow being very impactful in this sort of I don't want to say undefined, but the format is certainly very open still. However, even though it's open, almost everything does rely upon graveyard manipulation, which is where DD Crow, of course, absolutely shines. For the Altergeist monsters, we have the usual 1 Faker, triple Seek, triple Marionetta, double Silcatus, and 1 Conquery. For the draw spells, triple Extravagance and a double Duality 2, not deciding to drop this down at all. And then triple Spoofing, double Protocol, 1 Manifestation, and then triple Judgment, triple Strike, 1 Warding the full Solemn Brigade here, triple Compulse, and 1 Imperial Order. So not opting to play the Lost Wind, instead focusing on the monster removal here, so there's plenty of outs to monsters available within this deck. For the extra deck, triple Hextia, the 1 Prime Banshee, Borrow Load is the option for the Link 4, the 1 Phoenix, 1 Almirage, and triple Link Rebo. Just allowing you access to these even if you banish a few off the Extravagance, double Venom, double Chimera, and 1 Mega Fleet Dragon, just in case there is any Cyber Dragon still floating around. It still is a reasonably popular deck, we do see it every now and again, just floating amongst the sort of TCG regional season. Triple Nibiru, triple Lancia, triple Super Poly, triple Evenly, and triple Stormduster, so really honing in on cards that are known to perform extremely well versus very different matchups. Super Poly has been an amazingly versatile sort of trap for this deck, in that it allows you to break boards which the deck already kind of struggles with sometimes. But also it's something that's still live even if you get hit by Red Reboot, so that definitely is a shining factor for it as well. So that's it for the deck itself. Let's move on to the siding strategy first, and then we'll go into the rounds. So kicking off the siding strategy, we have what happens against Orcus. So going first, putting in the Lanciers. Obviously if you can resolve at Lancia, they're going to be put in a very awkward position, depending on the build of course, but since most of them are down to the pure build, Lancia really can have a big impact there, taking out 1 Imperm, 1 Protocol, and 1 Spoofing, just allowing yourself that extra versatility. Anyway, you are going first, you're more likely to get yourself in a position where you have your setup. And for going second, the Super Polys come in as well. You do need ways to break that board, and as a result we see some of these Solemn cards coming out there just to fit those in. For Salamangreat, going first, we have the Super Polys coming in, taking out 1 Protocol and 1 Spoofing. This is pretty interesting because I suppose there's so much monster removal in the deck that you don't really need to rely upon a Protocol, which, being a continuous trap, is much more susceptible to the rage. Same with the Spoofing. And Super Poly can be a blowout against them in the right scenario. Going second, we see the Nibiru's come in, very, very impactful in this matchup, and once again, some of the Solemn Brigade coming out to accommodate that. For Thunder Dragons, once again, Lanciers coming in, taking out DD Crows, which aren't super useful. They basically only interrupt the Titan here, which is not the best thing, and Lancia virtually performs the same function, except slightly better, and 1 order as well, not doing masses in this matchup. Going second, the Evenlies come in, help you break that board a bit. You should have a relatively good matchup anyway, which means you can afford to take out some of these sort of extra solemn stuff into the order and some of the one protocol, one spoofing, so some of the Altergeist traps as well. For the back row decks, so this is Mirror Matches, Striker, Guru, Draco, anything like that. Could even be Paleo if your regional happens to include it. Going first, obviously you put in the Heavy Storm Dusters, taking out one Compulse and double DD Crow. Seems fair enough. Most of the back row decks don't actually have much reliance on the graveyard, so DD Crow doesn't put in an awful lot of work. And resolving Dusters is so strong in these matchups anyway, so it's just super impactful there. But going second, very similar in the sense that you want to resolve your super value cards, so income the Evenlies and 2 Dusters here, not the third one though. Taking out Triple Compulse, again, it's not the most relevant card in this matchup. One spoofing and one protocol. You do want to keep in those DD Crows just so you can have some kind of interruption during their first turn, of course. So on to the rounds then. So a 7-round event and a 5-2 record from this, so very strong. Starting off against Guru Control, winning game 1. Winning this match. Game 1, not seeing any Geist in hand and losing, unfortunately, but games 2 and 3, after siding correctly and the opponent misplaying a few times, he was able to win. However, it's a relatively tricky matchup. Round 2 against True Draco, again, this is one of the more difficult ones, but game 1 winning the die roll and opening really well with Judgment on the opponent's Tribute Summon being very strong there. Unfortunately, losing game 2 to the Demise and everything else, but able to win game 3 in practically the same way as game 1. Round 3 against Orcust. This was against the Tom Rose from Team Cerebros, so check them out if you haven't already. But basically what happened was Tom's hand didn't seem great in either games. Camron was able to imperm the Mathematician from Tom, which was really huge in both the games and allowed him to follow up with heavy trap card control and just win out from there. So we're 2-0 in round 3. Round 4 against Weather Painters, going 2-1. He says, I have no idea what I was playing against. It seemed to be a going second build. Siding was pretty tough, only just won game 3 before going into time. However, it was a pretty cool deck. So you never really know what you're going against in Weather Painters, but I guess this sounds like an extra spicy build that perhaps didn't do so well given that it did lose in round 4. So on to round 5 against Danger Dino. The first loss here, so on table 1, misplayed in game 1 and game 3, costing the match. Didn't negate the correct cards, which allowed the opponent to sit on Appaloosa and control the tempo from there, so a bit unfortunate. And then on to round 6 against Thunder Dragon, 1-2 here. So losing this round, unfortunately, again, misplayed in game 1, and then in game 3 got hit by an Eradicator Boris, which, despite being a generally favourable matchup, you have to take the loss at that point, unless you have a way to come back from it. So going from XO to X2 at this point made Camron's chances of topping very slim. And so he says sleep is definitely important. YuGiOh events can be very, very long days. So the final round, round 7, 2-1 here, so winning the final round, losing game 1, and then coming back games 2 and 3 through siding correctly. A very tough matchup. Tried to make the main deck fairly good in this matchup because Orcust is going to be everywhere at the moment, and it looks like it paid off, giving him the win and securing a top cut spot. So I asked him how the event was. He said it was really good. It was 2 hours to drive down, unfortunately, so that makes it a bit tricky, but between rounds it was very smooth and just a good first regional of the season for him. As for why he decided to play this deck, he says he made day 2 at YCS London playing roughly the same list, so he was very familiar with the strategy. It was a very good matchup against quite a lot of the popular decks. 3 Solemn Judgment is broken, so it put in loads of work, and then obviously Faker is kind of an unfair card in general. The hardest and easiest matchup, so hardest, he says, by far is Sky Striker, and the Mirror can be pretty tough as well. However, the easiest one is probably popular decks like Orcust and Thunder, as long as you don't misplay like him in round 6. And actually the Salad matchup is relatively good as well. Compared to the sort of standard decks, there's not really anything that shines from this one to put it out there. Perhaps the 3 Compulse is very strong ATM, and the DD Crow use is pretty good as well. However, overall, it's pretty standard. The ratios are fairly well established at this point. And he thinks that it helped pretty much because he didn't brick very much due to the good ratios. Even after side decking, you can play through things like the Red Reboot and the Twin Twister just because you have access to stuff like Judgment. At the moment, he doesn't think he'd make any changes. He doesn't get much time to adjust the side deck to the format at the moment. So it's just been left as 5-3, or maybe it would be tailored to better suit the format, but perhaps not for a little while. None of the recent sets really influenced this deck, but perhaps the release of the new sort of Raigeki/Duster card, which really checks the back row decks, will be a big impact when that does eventually come out for us. And then on to the shoutouts. So shoutouts go to Firestorm, Newport and Cardiff, the locals where he playtests and shares deck ideas. His YouTube and Twitter, which is NDD_GamesTCG. So if you want to check that out, give it a search, give it a sub, and just go and check out what he's doing with his YouTube channel. And then further comments, he says that DD Crow is so good at the moment, and Striker is absolutely not dead. He's got a spicy list cooking up for YCS Milan, which is coming up very soon. So thanks for coming on, Camron, sharing your list, and taking us through all of the details of how you piloted this Altergeist list to a top 8 spot at the Exeter Regional. What do you guys think? Are there any changes that you would make? Let me know in the comment section, and I'll see you guys in the next one.